Hi, I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Rainy Mountain Royalty Corp., RMO, on the TSX Venture Exchange. Rainy Mountain Royalty Corp. is a Canadian-based mineral exploration project generator. The company currently holds multiple property interests in Ontario with joint venture partners and is seeking further joint venture partners for other drill-ready properties in our portfolio. For more information, please visit our website at rmroyalty.com or call me at 604-922-2030.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Ross Kay. He's a home ownership consultant at wealthyhomeowner.ca. Welcome back to the show and happy Family Day, Ross.
And same to you, Jim, and thanks for having me back.
Ross, there's new talk that perhaps the government will allow 30-year mortgages again. Is that a good or bad deal?
30-year amortizations. Well, it's kind of a catch-22, isn't it? So that's really a hard question for me to answer, Jim, because it sounds so simple, yet it's really so complicated. So the way that we look at homeownership, if you used a 30-year amortization properly, it would be a great thing for any homeowner. Even though you're technically going to pay more mortgage interest over the course of your mortgage because you've got an extra 5 years, and because the way the amortization tables work, you pay a lot more interest in those 5 years, because really those are 5 years at the beginning of the mortgage that we're talking about. The truth of the matter is that with the strategies that we have, where we believe you should carry a mortgage for the lifetime that you own a home, you really should never pay off your mortgage. The 30-year amortization works for those kind of people. Now, those kind of owners, you have to understand, those kind of owners are sitting down with a spreadsheet, looking at the numbers over the next 25 years, and they're using them to their advantage during those 25 years. That is a very, very, very rare homeowner. That is a very rare home. Most homeowners get an amortization, whatever the bank tells them, and they go ahead and work at paying that mortgage off over the amortization period that they've accepted. They don't look at it as a way of building wealth. Where the concern is that the government, the way they talk about increasing amortization, the way that the Mortgage Brokers Association talks about increasing amortization, the way that the real estate boards and the realtors talk about increasing amortization, they always talk about it in a way that it allows first-time buyers to buy a more expensive home. They don't say that the first-time buyer who doesn't qualify to buy the home is now going to be able to qualify to buy it because the income required drops. They say that they're going to be able to buy a more expensive home. Now, whether they target that quietly by not mentioning they're talking about Vancouver or the Greater Vancouver area or the Greater Toronto area, it really doesn't matter, because what they're actually saying is it allows a first-time home buyer to buy a more expensive home. They qualify as saying, it allows them to get into the market, which we would answer hogwash in return. The biggest concern that you should always have, so this is the flip side of the 30-year amortization, is that normally when you drop the amortization, allowing first-time buyers to buy a more expensive home, or people who currently are not qualified to buy a home, all of a sudden now can buy one, earning this, even though they earn the exact same amount of money in a year, is that could be a little boost to the first-time buyer segment of the market. Now, you can listen to all of the propaganda that you hear out there about how housing prices go up and down. I think your listeners would understand when I said, when a whole bunch of first-time buyers buy houses in a month, the average selling price obviously will be lower than if those first-time buyers were not buying. In other words, if it was more trade-up buyers that were buying, the average selling price goes up. Now, I know some of your listeners will be out there and say, well, we don't look at the average price, we look at the benchmark price. Well, I'll tell those people, if you go back and you look at the base price in January of 2005, and then you look at the price that it's at today, the benchmark price has gone up identical to what the average selling price is when you take away the little bit of lag, the little bit of delay, the methodology for the benchmark price creates. I need to stress this. From 2005, January 5th of 2005, until today, benchmark price has gone up the same percentage that the average selling price is. So don't listen to all the propaganda you hear out there. If you see a chart produced by an economist, a bank or an academic or a realtor that uses the benchmark price, they're just simply using the average selling price because those two metrics from 2005 till today have remained exactly the same. So throw that away. You basically can trust nothing else that's being talked about because they're using a false metric. This is the problem, the flip side problem of increasing the amortization. If you let a whole bunch of first-time buyers come into the market at a time when the market is already correcting, it's going to be announced that the average selling price has dropped again. If people think that there's panic in the real estate market right now, Jim, out there, panic is measured by the lack of houses that are listed for sale. And at the national level, we currently are at an all-time low. So when I say we're at an all-time low, it means of all of the homes in Canada that could be listed for sale today, the few homes that are actually listed is the lowest percentage that has ever been recorded since 1980. This is fear. Existing homeowners are fearful of buying another house as the housing prices are dropping. This is common in the early stages of a housing correction. Even though I've told your listeners we're already 2 years into the Canadian correction, that is still early stages, folks, especially after the run-up that we've had. So you can only imagine the government increases the amortizations to 30, the realtors get out there convincing a whole bunch of young couples this is the time to buy. Remember, a realtor cannot say that you should not buy a house today because it's going to be worth less tomorrow. That's against the law for any realtor in Canada to say that. It's why I had to quit real estate in 2013 because I couldn't give the second part of the answer when I was warning people about the housing market back then. The only legal thing I could say then was, well, you shouldn't buy. If I said anything else, I would have been charged in the province of Ontario. My status at that time means I would have been charged. Another realtor would have laid charges against me. So I couldn't give the second part of the answer that I'm able to give now. If those amortization is stretched, if there was a small surge of first-time buyers into the market, the average selling price would drop more than it is at the current pace that it's currently dropping, and that could set off the final set of fear. So I have mixed emotions on these amortizations. To be honest with you, Jim, I love 40-year amps. But then again, I also look at mortgages totally differently than the way they're sold to the Canadian public. The only reason the stress test was needed was because Canadians aren't getting qualified on 10-year mortgage rates. Banks don't want to qualify, did not want to qualify home buyers on 10-year mortgage rates. Realtors have never, ever, in 40 years, ever wanted to talk about 10-year mortgage rates. Yet that's really the very first thing any first-time buyer should look at. Do I qualify at the 10-year rate? Because that is always the determining factor. Believe me, all the eggheads at all the banks calculating the interest rates, this is one area where there has been very, very small margin of error over the last 40 years. When you look at the 10-year mortgage rate, total interest paid over that 10-year period, very, very seldom is the bank a loser. Very, very seldom. this calculation has been very reliable. There's another component to that calculation that makes it even more reliable. And that has to do with tracking American bond rates and the American mortgage rates and the point differential that you have to pay when you're in the States. We've always tracked those things when we're talking to our buyers because they need to understand what the cost of their mortgage is going to be. And the problem with the 30-year AM, if you're not offsetting that cost by having a financial advisor or a stockbroker or someone you trust handling the proper use of that mortgage principal, is that you're going to pay more interest. 30-year AM adds 5 years at the beginning of the mortgage where you're accruing interest. Don't forget that, listeners. Anybody who's out there that is still a first-time buyer, when you increase the amortization, you are adding those years at the beginning of the mortgage. And at the beginning of the mortgage is when you're paying the most interest.
We'll have more with Ross Kay right after this.
Avon Resources Limited is a gold exploration company with significant projects in British Columbia, Saskatchewan, and the Yukon. Trading on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ABN, and the pink symbol ABN-AF. Surrounded by world-class gold deposits and mines, Avon's 23,000 hectares Forest Kerr Gold Project is located in the heart of the Golden Triangle in northwestern BC. For more information, visit us at avonresources.com.
Grand Portage Resources recently completed the 2018 drill program on its 100% controlled Herbert Gold Discovery property located in the prolific Juneau Belt in southeast Alaska. Drill results are expected through late 2018. Past drill results included numerous multi-ounce gold assays on multiple veins. Grand Portage trading symbols are GPG on the TSX Venture, GPTRF on the OTC QB, and GPB on Frankfurt. For more information, please visit our website, grandportage.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Ross Kay. Ross, late last week we heard you were quoted talking about massive errors in sales reported by real estate boards. Can you bring our listeners up to speed on that?
Yeah, so this has been a long process with me, and it's actually the reason why I had to leave the Canadian Real Estate Association back in 2013, being a third generation of my family to be a realtor and to have been had a very successful sales career over 25 years. I caught the Canadian Real Estate Association lying back in 2013. There was a big expose in the Huffington Post. The Greg Klump, who is still the chief economist at the Canadian Real Estate Association, came back in a rebuttal in a blog post saying that what I was saying was overstated. Well, here we are now, 2018 or 2019. So we're now fully, what's that? We're going into about 5.5 years. It's going on to 6 years since the timing of that article. And the Canadian Real Estate Association during that entire time period has denied what I said to be true. Well, lo and behold, here we go. They have now revised for some municipalities in Ontario. They have downgraded the sales stats for the last 7 years. The Real Estate Board of Hamilton Burlington, which was the real estate board that my family had helped build and form over the 40 years that we were there, they are the biggest mea culpa in the history of Canadian real estate about over-reporting sales. That real estate board in my hometown of Burlington admitted they had over-reported sales by over 15% in months. This is on their website. So anybody who here questions my understanding of the MLS systems or how these numbers work, they can go to rahb.ca, rab.ca, and they can pull the year-end stats where the board has a full page of mea culpa saying we made a mistake, trying to blame the mistake on another function. But what's unusual is if you download, which they have available to you on their website, their historical sales, you will see the peak of the market in the greater Hamilton-Burlington area was 2015. 2015 was the year they hit their highest number of sales. Not 2016, not 2017. So in other words, for those 2 years where every newspaper in Canada was reporting about the crazy real estate market in Ontario, surprisingly now, the second largest real estate board in the province, and certainly the most ethical real estate board in probably all of Canada, has come clean. The peak sales actually happened in 2015. Now, these manipulations of numbers and stats go on across the country over and over again. And it's why all of the realtors who have graphs and charts on their website, or economists, CMHC now has started to pull away from this after we informed them of what was going on. But all of those charts that you see on these websites, they're all fraudulent, folks. These charts are all wrong. The mere fact that the authors of the charts don't understand how real estate sales get reported is the problem. So your listeners would have heard in the news this week that sales for the first time in 5 months had gone up in Canada. That's what your listeners would have read in the newspaper. It made headlines. I think it was a 3.4% gain is what the Canadian Real Estate Association announced. The truth of the matter is they reported 1,000 fewer sales this January than were reported last January. Not only that, they conveniently left out reporting one major real estate board's numbers. When they came up with this number, they left this real estate board's numbers out of their stats, and it was in Ontario.
Which board?
They did that because the Hamilton-Burlington Real Estate Board had to change their numbers. So you can just imagine this, Jim. These sort of manipulations of the stats go on and on. I mean, in British Columbia, everybody wonders what's happening in British Columbia. Okay, well, first of all, you never get a Greater Vancouver area price. You have never had anybody publish it. I know the Globe and Mail, Global News, everybody has been asking me, Ross, what is the real Greater Vancouver area price? Oh, I'm not going to tell you what it is. They know that it's wrong. Brent Jung from the Globe and Mail has gone to the real estate boards and asked it. They can't give him one. That's because the Greater Vancouver Real Estate Board covers multiple real estate boards. So you have to commingle their numbers. That means you have to understand how one real estate board reports their numbers 1 month and how the other real estate board reports their numbers 1 month. Don't worry, it gets way more complicated than that. Because what is being reported this year versus what is being reported last year changes. I mean, in British Columbia, beginning in around the early part of 2015, part of the reason your market was said to be as busy as it was because you were counting for sale by owners. Now, your listeners in Vancouver, we just talked about Ontario, now we're back in Vancouver. Think about this if you're a Vancouver home buyer. Foreign buyers were buying property. The real estate board wasn't disclosing it was foreign buyers. You have for sale by owners being counted. Real estate board didn't tell anyone in the public, it does not appear in a single newspaper in British Columbia in 2015, what percentage of their sales were for sale by owners. Because back in 2013, 0 were for sale by owners. It was illegal to post an MLS listing, for sale by owner on the MLS system. That changed in 2013, and by 2015 it started to impact the stats. Started to impact the stats in British Columbia, Alberta, and in Ontario. You didn't read that one. So if you're looking at a chart that quotes real estate sales, and it hasn't removed the impact of for sale by owners, it's a useless chart. If you're looking at a chart that is comparing closed sales against pending sales, it's a useless chart. Now, I need for your listeners to trust me with this. This is not the fault of the real estate boards. Okay? The real estate boards report sales stats as a way of generating income for their members. These sales stats were never designed for the public to use or rely upon. Never. They weren't created that way because they were never intended to be used that way. They are a seller beneficial stat. The stat was created prior to 1995, when in every province in Canada, the only party of a real estate in a real estate transaction that could receive legal representation by a realtor was a seller. Up until 1995, no buyer in Canadian history had any legal rights to representation in an offer. Everything that organized real estate did, from the day it began right on through till 1995, was to get the highest price possible on a listing. Whether you were the listing agent or you're the cooperating agent who was working with the buyer, it made no difference. The sole legal obligation was the highest price possible. So then we have to go back. Okay, then how come there's no new metrics that have been released after 1995? Where are the buyer side metrics? Where are the metrics that tell a home buyer whether or not a house is overpriced or not? Where are the metrics that are measuring the entire housing market instead of a few homes that are selling in a month? Why are buyers not being provided this information? Why does it not appear in any real estate charts by any economists, academics, or realtors? Why did they not have those charts? Because they would have to understand the history of the MLS systems in Canada, which would tell them you can never use real estate stats to understand what's going on in a housing market. All real estate stats simply do is help sellers get the highest price possible, which we now know in 2019 was how the housing bubble was inflated to the great proportion it was inflated to. The real estate stats released by Organized Real Estate this week, there were 1,000 fewer sales, guaranteed, minimum. That's unadjusted. Now, those are not our numbers. Those are the numbers the real estate boards themselves have released. The real estate boards in aggregate reported 1,000 fewer sales this month versus the same month last year. Yet the real estate board in the headlines claimed it was a 3.4% gain. You can imagine the psyche of home buyers listening month after month about sales rising versus month after month sales declining. You can imagine the psyche of hearing your local hometown realtors announcing sales were 15% higher than actually took place. They fudged the numbers by 15%. If you're a lawyer and you're listening and you're interested in setting a class action lawsuit, give me a call.
We'll have more with Ross Kay right after this.
Hi, I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Magnum Gold Corp, MGI and the TSX Venture Exchange. A 2015 drill program on the LH property intersected several high-grade gold intersections, including 11 meters of 20.66 grams per ton gold. Additional drill targets on the LH property have been identified by a 2018 drone airborne magnetic survey to further evaluate a pyrrhotite-enriched gold-bearing system. Please visit our website at magnumgoldcorp.com.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Ross Kay. Ross, a listener has a mature older child who has a severe health issue, and your comments about free homes and free post-secondary education had him asking why his daughter can't find those types of situations. Can you help him out?
I can help. Well, they certainly can reach out to me, and I can do it on a personal level with them. I mean, this sounds like it's an unusual situation. So I know that people want to say what I'm saying here on the show at times is unbelievable. It's not true. Well, when I tell people that you can get a free home, what I'm talking about there is that you can start your family life in certain cities across the country, beautiful cities, excellent cities, close to shopping, close to hospitals, close to every sporting event your kids could ever want to participate in. The same great schools that we have in the largest urban areas, arguably maybe a better level of education. These cities, generally speaking, are places where you can purchase a house for under $200,000. When you get under $200,000, Jim, and you have two kids, and you're only earning minimum wage for the sake of the argument. This is just the easiest way to describe it, minimum wage. The government of Canada gives you a substantial child tax benefit every single month because they believe you need that assistance to survive. Well, that may be true in Toronto or Vancouver, but you move 2 hours down the road from Toronto. You move 2 hours down the road from Vancouver. You're living the high life if you're earning minimum wage, and the government is giving you the amount of monthly child tax benefit. The monthly child tax benefit at the maximum level for just two kids fully pays for a home ownership situation with 10% down. Fully pays for it. It pays for the house and it pays for the property taxes. Now you're going to have to pay your heat and hydro, and you're going to have to do your maintenance and repairs on the property. But I can tell you, this also works on a 17-year amortization. So at the end of 17 years, when your kids are 17, your house is paid off. It is paid off solely by the use of the Canadian Child Tax Benefit, which you get delivered to you every month to make your mortgage and property tax payment. Then, at the end of those 17 years, if the rules are the same as they are today, your kids can delay going to university for 3 years. They can go work at McDonald's for 3 years. Then they can apply to a post-secondary university as an adult student. This listener that has the child, the mature child you're talking about, the government of Ontario, they will give that person $27,000 per year as a grant to go to a post-secondary education in this province. That means if you choose Western University, or you choose Wilfrid Laurier, or you choose the University of Windsor, or even to a certain degree McMaster University, and you don't mind a little bit of a commute because you're going to have enough money to buy a car and pay for the gas, they will fully fund not only your post-secondary education, but they will pay your mortgage and your property taxes while you go to school. All you need to do is have a part-time job to pay for your groceries and your heat and hydro. These are not made-up numbers. These are numbers you can get right from the government website. I had a big chat with, I was at a tournament I was coaching over the weekend with my grade 10 boys teams, and I had a great discussion with some of the parents on the team about the lack of financial literacy taught in school. And I personally believe this is the single greatest failing of our educational system. Because without children learning from a relatively young age, say from grade 6 on, and certainly right on through high school, that how you structure your life and the decisions that you make are going to impact your life forever, they don't look at building the best strategy for life. Now, I think it makes more sense to set your family up in London, Ontario, with the plan of your kids going to Western University, highly respected university, and have the government, through our existing system, pay off your mortgage and give your kids a free education. If that means your kids have to delay going to university for 3 years while they work at McDonald's, so be it. What I would encourage them to do with that money while they're working at McDonald's, waiting to get the $27,000 worth of free grants to go to school, I would encourage them to live at home, bank all the money. They can probably blow about $8,000 a year. Parents let them live rent-free. Maybe the parents could collect the money for them and put it in a TFSA for them. If they wait 4 years, for the sake of the argument, they're going to have $80,000 in a TFSA account by the age of 22 years old. By the time they're 62 years old, that $80,000 should be worth around $823,000. That's what it should be worth. If you call a financial advisor and get you 6% return on a balanced portfolio for your TFSA, that $80,000 that you had earned in the first 4 years instead of going to university is going to be worth $823,000. Now imagine the lucky girl who meets a guy who did the exact same thing. Combined, they're going to have $1.6 million between the two of them by the time they're 62 years old. If they wait another 4 or 5 years, they're going to be worth $2 million. Now, you got to remember, maybe they don't decide not to bother going to post-secondary at the end of those 4 years. Instead, they buy a house. They start working just regular jobs, regular lives. Maybe they get into the trades. Maybe they get into construction. Maybe they get into nursing. Who knows what the options are available to you? The point of the matter is, in those first 4 years, you set down the financial foundation that your whole life is going to be built on. There is nothing, in my personal opinion, worse than misleading young Canadians that going to university and spending 4 years from the age of 18 till 22 at a post-secondary education for $80,000 makes any common sense. I know of the thousands of kids that I coach, especially boys, very few boys are ready to go off, young men, at 18 years old to a university education. And that's why most of my buddies, I'm in my 50s, most of my buddies from high school ended up having a totally different career than the degree they earned at university. They chose other things. They chose other directions in life. Now, back then, you could work a part-time job and pay for your university education. You can't do that anymore today. It's debt. It's $80,000. I was shocked. I was shocked it was $80,000, but that's what it is. So this gentleman you were talking about, this father, sure, he can drop me an email, and I can lay out the plan for him with no problem. It just means that you have to have a strategy in place, and you have to execute. You can't wait. You have to be proactive. No, you can't do this living in Vancouver. No, you can't do this living in Toronto. But you know something, folks? My hometown of Burlington here. You can't do that living in Roseland. So Roseland is our old mature area of the city of Burlington here. So if I choose to live in the most expensive area of Burlington, you can't do it. No more than if you choose to live in the most expensive area of British Columbia or the most expensive area of Ontario. No, you can't do it. If you choose a less expensive area, you are going to have a totally different life. And the beautiful thing is, so few people want to do it. So few people are going to even think about it, that the opportunities are in.
Ross, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Jim.
If you need to get a hold of Ross, you can do it through us by going to info@howstreet.com. You're listening to HowStreet.com Radio, our YouTube channel, Talk Digital Network. Find us on Twitter @HowStreet. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com Radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com Radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.